This is Jesus, James, and Mark. And I'm Mark.
And I'm James.
Welcome to
42.
episode
42.
42.
42.
Is it 42?
Yeah. I checked before we started.
Wow.
Yeah.
42. Well, there's many ways you can listen. This is the time of the show where I like to remind you of those, so that if you're listening in some way that maybe you'll hear this other way, and it'll be that's much better for me. I somehow stumbled on it this way, but I'd prefer it the other way. Well, you can get us on Apple Podcasts, you can get us on Spotify, on iHeart Podcast, and on Audible, Amazon's version of podcast as well, or YouTube is a great place.
Yep.
Facebook sometimes. Facebook is selectively strange sometimes. I'm not trying to call out Facebook. I'm just saying sometimes things disappear on Facebook.
It's like a random.
It's a random. Hey, we've decided to pull your video. No reason, and nobody gets up with you. They just pull it. They don't tell you. There's no notification or anything. That probably means this video won't last on Facebook very long. Now that I've said all this, but it's all right. Look, we're in the midst of talking about the book of Genesis in our study.
We went really deep into the Israel connection last podcast about what should Christians, relationship with Israel be. Because it's been
topical.
It's in the news at the moment. It's been in the
news, and so now it's. I wouldn't say it's quieted. I mean, it's there's been some
peace talks
Some peace talks are going on, and so, but look, we decided it was. I thought it again. I hate to use circumstantial, right? Because we were just talking about that. Seemed fitting. We were right there in Genesis 12 that it's like, well, by the way, if you're wondering about this thing that they keep talking about, this is the thing they're talking about right where we are. And we didn't finish Genesis 12 because there's another part of Genesis 12. But I wanted to, before we get started here, I like that we've started the show off in different denominational hats again.
Well, this is the conflict that we have right now.
Right.
There are no peace talks going on.
Not between the Yankees and Red Sox, probably not. But that's good. I don't know that we can do this throughout the year, but definitely when football season comes. Now, you haven't represented your football team. Have you represented your football team on this podcast?
I don't think I have. No.
On the video side of it, because again, we know many people are listening.
We've mentioned
more than watching. So
I haven't displayed any.
That's right.
Paraphernalia or merc.
Yeah. Yes. Merchandise. Yes.
Merchandise. Yeah.
But today we are both sporting, and you are wearing your Yankees cap, but which again, your dad was a Yankees fan.
He was a Yankees fan for you.
And
kind of migrated to the Braves later on in his life. He was kind of a dual fan, but he was Yankees for my whole childhood. Yeah.
And it's funny because I'm wearing a Boston Red Sox hat, which is the arch rival of the Yankees.
He would want me to thank you
for
Babe Ruth. So thank y'all for that.
Right.
Trade back in.
Forever connected. And while I believe in generational curses, I don't believe in baseball curses.
No.
I don't believe there was a curse because of Babe Ruth, and because apparently the story goes that Boston, they sold him for to raise money for a play or something like that. The story goes.
Yeah, I think they got $30 in some popcorn for the vending machine. I think is something like that.
And Babe Ruth goes on to be Babe Ruth.
I mean, nobody's ever heard of him, right?
And the Red Sox don't win a World Series until the 2000s, and so
they won one.
They did.
Oh, okay.
They did. They actually did. And I am new on to be honest with you, while your dad was a long time Yankees. I'm new to this whole Red Sox thing.
Well, yeah.
So, but
maybe it won't stick.
But what's interesting though is I was thinking about your dad, who longtime Yankee fan, right? And so we're talking about, and so how does this relate to Abraham? And what I found interesting was because we kind of went right into and we spent so much time on that Israel blessing thing last week that I actually spent some time doing some studying about Abraham. And so his dad, so when you go back to, I think it's 11, where they're talking about the lineage, and they talk about Terah, his dad. And so Terah, so there's a lot of historical books about Abraham, and so there's like the accounts are that Terah was this guy who was originally from Haran, if I'm not mistaken. Then he goes into this other city, right, to this of the Chaldeans.
Yeah.
And this is a huge city, by the way. So we hadn't spent any time talking about the fact that this is a major city at the time. They estimated the population around 300,000.
Oh wow!
And so,
for that time, that would be
huge.
It
was huge.
Oh, yeah.
They've made archaeological digs that have there was like a university there. There was a cultural thing, and again, so what was interesting was so Terah, who's Abram's father, originally from and I'm going to get these Haran. Then he goes to this Ur of the Chaldeans, and becomes this basically a talisman salesman. So he's basically carving these idols or selling these idols. And so how interesting that
absolutely
Abraham would be born. Now what's and you go to 11, and it also talks about the this brother of Abraham who died, because we're going to start reading about Lot, and it's like what is this life tie to that Lot, this nephew? Well, it's his brother. It's Abraham's brother, and
Lot's
it says
his nephew.
Lot is
Abram's nephew.
Is his son, the son of his brother, and so he takes care of him as they would have in a lot of societies, including ours today. You see that happening today. So and what's interesting is that he takes his he takes Lot, and so he's from his dad. To think that he's coming from this guy who's basically and in this city where they worship many gods.
Right.
This was a multi deity city, basically, that this guy would become the father of faith, essentially.
Right. Yeah.
And we could say that what's interesting about that is the major religions. Again, it's, if you look at it again, we briefly mentioned the Jewish people, Christians. It's a little different for Muslim people because, like I said, it's at Abraham where the story starts to take a difference about Ishmael instead of Abraham and Isaac and all those things. But it's just interesting that when I was thinking about this, migrating, your dad migrating to Atlanta, and so I did the studying of him, and I got stumbled on this. So it does tell in Genesis 11. That his brother, Abraham's brother, died in front of his father, which seems like this horrific event. It doesn't really go into any details, but died before his father. So, I mean, and there is a tale about this, an old Jewish tale that has but I stumbled upon this in this little excerpt from this book of Abraham and Sarah, that they said that, and the name Abraham means, Abram means exalted father. Abraham means father of many nations. So, but his brother was named after, if I'm not mistaken, the fire god. And apparently there is an old Jewish tale about this. His brother was actually thrown in the fire and burned.
Oh, wow.
And apparently this was a horrific thing. And again, I can't validate, because again, in the book I was reading, the Abraham and Sarah history excerpt, I didn't read the whole book, but it was talking about this. And so, but it was interesting that I read about, we read about the promises, right, that God gave Abraham. We went through all those lists. And there was a couple of things that I found so interesting about this was that God had told him he needed to leave the country. And it doesn't tell how long had it been before he had told him that he had actually did it.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is, too, when you go and look at it, it appears that he took his dad and his brother and they just went back to his dad's old hometown before he even went to the promised land. And they spent a little bit of time there, as I was reading. So it was like his dad wanted to migrate back to his old hometown there for a little bit and spend some time there before eventually. It's just interesting because we look at Abraham and we just straight, like just testimony go, oh, God said go, and he went. No, he didn't. He probably waited a while before he even left. And then when he did, he went somewhere else and hung out there for a little while before he
And
before
nothing
he went
happened
on.
quick. You didn't hop into the van and just take off to go somewhere. You know, this was, you had to plan for these kind of trips. And he's got his household, his servants, his nephew, his flocks. I mean, he's taking everything, right? When he goes, he takes the whole shebang.
It's again.
Did it say anything about his father wanting to go back to the hometown because maybe he was in age and was getting ready? I don't remember his father going with him on the trek once he takes off towards the promised land.
Because once he goes to the promised land, which is Canaan, which is Israel, then it appears his dad wanted to just go to his hometown to spend his later years. Like, hey, this is where I want to go back to my.
Yeah, when I pass, I want to be home. In my homeland. That would make sense, I guess.
And it's interesting too, because again, remember the old the original the command of go and multiply.
Yeah.
And how much we continuously don't go and do anything.
Right.
We want to stay and wait.
Right. Yeah.
Right? It's like, and it's constantly, and so his dad goes and makes, I guess, a living for himself selling these idols in Ur of Chaldea Ur of the Chaldeans. Let me make sure I get and then goes back home where he wants to spend some time. And then now we're going to make this trek to the promised land but it was
that is super interesting though that his father was an idol maker. And he is basically the father of the monotheistic belief system in one God. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Maybe it was through his father. It was
not that he created that, but it all stems, like you said, all the major religions believe in one God, or the major monothéistics anyway, believe in the one God thing. And this is where it started, from a offspring of an idol maker, which is that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Again, as I said, to me, and I found that super interesting too, because again, now again from a where you've got a polytheistic system of multiple gods. Yeah. Now here's a guy who's now going to be I was called by a God who is the one true God, the one living God, and I'm going to say go out and do this thing And so where we left off, so we just talked about the basic promise. And so that's kind of where we are now, kind of talking about that. Mm-hmm. And now this is what's interesting. So because again, remember, this is the father of faith. He's in the, God, I'm going to get the book wrong. Is it Hebrews in the Hall of Faith when he's listed as the, or is it Chronicles? He's listed again. This is one of the, if you go, forefathers of the Old Testament, and again, as I said, known as this father of faith. And so when you think straight line, you think, oh yeah, Abraham just went, and as I just illustrated, or was like, hey, I don't think it was as straight line as you think it was.
There are a lot of details left out of a lot of things here, but it's the general thought process that God said, go to a land that I will show you. So he didn't even name where you were going, and Abraham agreed to do it. Now, time, I guess, is relative to the time they were in. When he took off, I guess, really didn't matter to God as long as he did what he asked him to do.
Yeah, so he gets to this. So I'm trying to get to. Okay, so we left off at 9. So 12:9 was where we left off, which is where again, he moved there from the mountain east of Bethel. This is 12:8, by the way. Pitched his tent with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east, which is Ai, which is the enemy of the world right now. There he built an altar. The city is not an enemy. I'm talking about something entirely different. But anyways, let me get back to the scripture. There he built an altar to the Lord and called on the name of the Lord. So Abram journeyed going on still toward the south. Now that's where the promised land is.
And we mentioned before we started recording today that there's a reference that this may be the first worship place built for God. This may be the very first altar where people stood and worshiped the one true God. And that's going to be relevant later on in our discussion.
Oh, my gosh. I mean, this is foundationally something that it's something that is paramount to our Savior's entire ministry, was that, again, don't have to go to a place, don't have to meet with God, but at this particular time, it served its purpose. Yeah. And so he's there. And so here's what's interesting. So I just want to get this out, because has anybody's ever felt like this? So God's called me to this place. And I felt that, right? And you get there, okay? And then the next thing in the story that we're getting ready to read is a famine. And so before I read this, how many times have you felt like God has called you to something, and then when you got there, it was scarce, and you were like, "Really, God? This is the promised land?" So let's read.
Yeah, let's see just how human Abraham is.
Because here it goes. So he knows he's in the promised land. Here goes. We're starting with 12, Genesis 12:10, New King James Version. Now there was a famine in the land. This is the promised land. And Abram went down to Egypt to dwell there, for the famine was severe in the land. And it came to pass, when he was close to entering Egypt, that he said to Sarai's wife, "Indeed, I know that you are a woman of beautiful countenance. Therefore it will happen, when the Egyptians see you, that they will say, 'This is his wife,' and they will kill me. But they will let you live. Please say, 'You are my sister,' that it may be well with me for your sake, that I may live because of you." So it was, when Abram came into Egypt, that the Egyptians saw the woman, that she was very beautiful. The princes of the Pharaoh also saw her and commended her to Pharaoh. And the woman was taken to Pharaoh's house. He treated Abram well for her sake. He had sheep, oxen, male donkeys, male and female servants, female donkeys, and camels. But the Lord plagued Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abram's wife. And Pharaoh called Abram and said, "What is this you have done to me? Why did you not tell me that she was your wife? Why did you say, 'She is my sister'? I might have taken her as my wife. Now, therefore, here is your wife. Take her and go your way." So Pharaoh commanded his men concerning him, that they sent him away with his wife and all that he had. Okay. So that is all of 12. And I think we're going to get into 13 before we're done with today. But
this is typical how we handle turmoil, right? When something doesn't go our way, we immediately try to handle.
I got a plan.
Yeah, I can fix this. Instead of relying on God and staying true to that, Abram goes like, I need to work out a plan so that I don't get killed. And I think it's super intriguing that he says, "So that I may live because of you." So he's given his survival to Sarai instead of depending on God for being safe. I mean, and to me, it's just how it's the ebb and flow of the walk, right? Where there are times when you feel like you've got this, when really we never really do.
Oh, no. I mean, I think Abram was lucky that God was on his side.
Yeah, and the fact that he still gets blessed in his
Oh,
rebellion,
yeah.
right? So this is a little small rebellion. I did find it interesting that I read in my notes that it wasn't really a lie. Him and Sarai
in
are
Genesis
half
20,
yeah.
you will read that
Yeah.
that they're
half siblings. Yeah.
Same father, different mother.
Yeah. So when he said, "Tell him you're my sister," it really wasn't a lie, but it was a deception, right? So he was trying to make sure that he stayed safe on his own account by coming up with this story.
But a half truth is a half lie.
Yeah, it's half of each.
So there's and again, I brought this up last week. I just want to say this again. For whatever it's worth, and because one, the compliment, "You are beautiful in countenance," if it's not followed by the actions, and look, here's what I want to say: it was a bad plan. I'm not condoning the plan, because one, let's look at this on face value. The man was called by God to go to a place where he built an altar and they worshiped. Then a famine came to the land. And I think all us good Christians are sitting there going, why didn't he pray to the Lord? Because if you notice, there's nothing where God said, go to Egypt. There you'll find, he took it upon himself that there was famine and I had to do something. Now, I'm not saying that they didn't try other things that didn't work.
Right.
But what I'm saying is he ended up trying to do something desperate that put himself in danger, put his wife in danger, put his whole family in danger, and honestly, the future of the entire, Jewish nation and Christianity.
Well, I don't think there's anything he could have done to stop that.
Because again, God's going to get what he wants.
Exactly.
And so what happened was God protected the sanctity of his marriage by plaguing Pharaoh and giving him the discernment to realize this is not your sister, this is your wife.
Yeah.
And turned out to be a blessing because he's accumulated all of this stuff.
Yeah, the Pharaoh gives him all this stuff. And the first time I read through this, I thought that maybe she had been violated by Pharaoh because of all the stuff he was getting. But then you read the part where it says, "Why didn't you tell me?" I would have taken her as my wife.
Yes.
If this farce had gone on. So I'm assuming nothing like that took place.
Yeah.
She was brought into his harem or his court or whatever, but I think God plagued his house before anything like that could happen so that their union could stay pure.
But I want to say this. The fact that he said that she was beautiful in countenance and that it was sort of a backhanded compliment because he was
I'm sure it was true.
It was because I was going to say he said it, but he didn't say it like, "Oh, girl, you man, you are just man." He's like, "But you know why I'm saying this? Because they're gonna kill me.
Yeah,
they're gonna see you and they're gonna kill me. And so why don't you say you're my sister?" Because in their culture, by the way, if you're trying to marry someone's sister, you'd want to take care of their brother.
Right. Yep.
Hey, it's my brother. Da, da, da. So,
and he did. The Pharaoh blessed him with a lot of stuff.
Absolutely did. And so, but I want to back this up by saying, because otherwise it's just an empty compliment. But when it's followed by, as soon as they go into the country, everybody's like, "Yo, did you see this girl?"
Yeah.
And then they're like, more people see her, and then they're like, "Hey, you got to see this girl."
Yeah.
So that's got to tell you, like, wow. So everybody talks about Rahab in the Old Testament. I don't know, man.
Yeah, Sarah had it going on.
So I'm just saying. But what's interesting is, and to me, especially about this too, is just when I look at this and I say the father of faith. This is the guy. So one, he gets this command to go, and he obviously drags his feet to some degree before going or even getting there, because he goes to someplace else till his dad dies, and then he finally makes his way there, and then this bad thing happens, and then he decides to try to do all of these things that aren't in the will of God, and so.
And it's not the last time that he's going to defy God, right? With Ishmael in particular, God promised him an offspring. It didn't happen in their timeline. So Sarah says, "Hey, take my handmaid." All that happened. They still get blessed with a child. I mean, every time they try to step outside, and I think this is the progression of Abraham's belief, because this is the same man who thinks I've got to get to Egypt so we don't die because God's not going to take care of me, that takes his son to the mount to crucify him for
Right.
God. So he goes from trying to handle stuff at times on his own to being 100% whatever God says, I will do it.
Now, remember to, yes, I'm 100% with you.
Yeah, it's an arc, right? It's his walk.
Yeah, and so now,
And we all have that.
and so now he's got the walk of shame out of Egypt, right? Because you got to think this too. I mean, again, it doesn't say this, but remember, he's traveling with Lot, his people, the servants. People talk. You know they do.
Oh, yeah.
I would imagine this whole thing didn't come off very well. Like, did you hear what he did?
My notes specifically say that even his servants might have had a little bit different look on him after what he had done in Egypt.
Yes.
That his character had been hurt a little bit.
Oh yeah, no, I think that's exactly what we're gonna hit to on Genesis 13. And so when you look at even with Lot's situation, you know, he brought shame on the whole family. And so let's pick up to where, because go right to 13:1. Okay, then Abram went up from Egypt, he and his wife, and all that he had, and Lot with him, to the south. Abram was very rich in livestock, in silver and in gold, and he went on his journey from the south as far as Bethel, to the place where his tent had been at the beginning, between Bethel and Ai, to the place of the altar which he made there at first. And there Abram called on the name of the Lord. Lot also, who went with Abram, had flocks and herds and tents. Now the land. Now, hold on. Let me stop there. Let me just go back to 4, where it said, to the place of the altar which he had made there at first, and there Abram called on the name of the Lord. Okay. This is the moment where it felt like should have done this at the beginning.
Right.
But you and I were talking about this earlier. So this altar now becomes this, and I'm only highlighting this for new Christians today, because we're reading this, I guess it's trying to read it as, 2,000 years from the flood, or is it where we're 2,000 years from creation? I'm trying to remember our timeline. But we're also trying to read this as modern day Christians too, and have this translative, what this means kind of thing. So I feel like, and I don't know, but in this moment where, okay, now he's come back out of Egypt,
shamed to some point,
to some point. Now I've got to come back
probably
to
repentant.
God.
He's probably feeling very, very repentant, and he's like, I need to get back with God. And his thought process is that I've got to go back to the altar that's where I started building this altar. So that's where I've got to go.
But in the new covenant, and again, look, the story has to happen the way it is for us to have the story. So it's not,
and like I told you earlier,
he couldn't have done this because Jesus hadn't come yet anyway.
Yeah, and it is symbolic of us coming back to God.
Yes.
Whenever we fall away or whenever we stumble, we should come back to God just like he did. Now, you don't have to have an altar built and you go to this certain place to do it. But that was, and the culture at the time, the early Jews in Israel, they had the temple where the presence of God stayed, and that is how they fellowshiped with God through the priest, was in this one spot, and it moved with them whenever they went somewhere. But that's not how we don't have to approach it that way now. We should have a ongoing communication with our Savior. So,
and in this time it was this shrine, and for me it was just this. Aren't we glad now that if we were in that, like, we don't have to wait the moment we're kicked out of Egypt, we can start praying at that moment.
Exactly.
Like, hey, I've made some bad mistakes. I gotta start by apologizing to my wife.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I gotta start by apologizing to my family. Look, I've made some bad mistakes. Again, we survived the famine, but again, my forget. But
Not only did they survive the famine, but they left with more than they came with. So Abraham is still blessed. Yes,
that's the other part that is coming. So he's shamed, but rich now.
Yeah.
And so now they come back to the place, and you're right. It's symbolic for I've come back to the Lord. And so let's pick up from there, because I just wanted to emphasize that, because now we'll go from 13:5. Lot, his nephew, also, who went with Abram, had flocks and herds and tents. Now the land was not able to support them, that they might dwell together, for their possessions were so great that they could not dwell together. And there was strife between the herdsmen of Abram's livestock and the herdsmen of Lot's livestock. The Canaanites and the Perizzites then dwelt the land. So Abram said to Lot, please let there be no strife between you and me, between my herdsmen and your herdsmen, for we are brethren. Is not the whole land before you? Please separate from me. If you take the left, then I will go to the right. Or if you go to the right, then I will go to the left. And Lot lifted his eyes and saw all the plain of Jordan, that it was well watered everywhere, before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. So just as a note,
yeah,
you've heard these terms. This is where that was.
I mean, that's most people would recognize Lot's name from the story of Sodom and Gomorrah.
Right. Like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt as you go towards Zoar. Then Lot chose for himself all the plain of Jordan, and Lot journeyed east. And they separated from each other. Abram dwelt in the land of Canaan, and Lot dwelt in the cities of the plain, and pitched his tent even as far as Sodom. But the men of Sodom were exceedingly wicked and sinful against the Lord. And the Lord said to Abram, after Lot had separated from him, lift your eyes now and look from the place where you are, northward, southward, eastward, westward. For all the land which you see I give to you and your descendants forever. I will make your descendants as the dust of the earth, so that if a man could number the dust of the earth, then your descendants also could be numbered. Arise, walk in the land through its length and its width, for I give it to you. Then Abram moved his tent and went and dwelt by the terebinth trees of Mamre, which are in
Mamre.
Hebron, and built an altar there to the Lord. So there's another altar built, and that's the end of 13. But what you're seeing here is
a much humbled Abraham in this situation.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
so he's gone back, called on the name of the Lord, and he has come to this next situation with a much different disposition.
Yeah, and it's obvious all of that stuff that happened probably in Egypt had the ripple effect of all these people, all these servants and herdsmen.
Yep.
I mean, we're probably talking like hundreds, maybe thousands. Who knows how many people these?
I wonder if that was some of the strife between the herdsmen. Is lots of herdsmen were saying, "Look what your leader, look what your master did in Egypt. You know, get your sheep out of here, whatever."
And people are like that.
Yeah,
as you well know, people are like that, and so here's this interesting thing where obviously Abram's the senior here. He's the uncle. He's the guy who, and the way that it goes, I'm going to get the first pick of anything because I'm your elder.
Exactly.
But
and he could have done that. He could have pulled the card.
Absolutely.
But he comes at it very humbled, and he allows God to decide. He left it in God's hands and Lot's. He said, "You pick, and I'll take whatever you don't pick." Knowing that God was going to bless him. This is one of the arcs, right? That's where he okay, I know I messed up in Egypt. Let's let God handle this one, and we all know how that works out. It's not the last time he's going to make the wrong decision.
No.
But it shows that growth, right? Where you realize, you repent, you come back to God, and you're better for it.
Well, and you look deeper in this whole thing. There's to me two things. One is that we as humans, like Lot, it's easy to fall to let the eyes make the choice, right?
Oh yeah,
because I lift my eyes up and I look, and again with whatever choice it is, a job, a house, a situation, if you are only looking at it in that surface level like Lot did. All
Yeah.
he saw was that
He said it looked like the garden of the Lord, like it was
Like
Eden.
it was Eden.
He was looking at, like the most perfect garden in creation.
And that little footnote that we all know the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, and it puts in there, but the men of Sodom were wicked in the eyes of the Lord. That's put there. Obviously, to remind you, like, hey, it looks really good, but guess what? Not really good.
So earlier they say that the Canaanites and the Perizzites dwelt there. So they're kind of letting you know, like, okay, this is going to be a conflict later on down. These people were already in this land at the time that God gave it to Abraham. And I'm telling you, the best part of this whole thing is where he says, look to the east, west, south, north.
Oh, yes.
And all that you see, I give to you and your descendants forever. Now, I'm not a historical scholar or a geographical wizard. I don't know what he was looking at, and I don't know how big an area that is. I don't know what all that entails. The borders we can discuss. But whatever he was looking at was given to him forever.
I'm going to try to do, because that was the second point I was going to, because I said, when I said two, no, because it was like, I think we're on the same
absolutely
thing here. The second thing is I think it didn't matter what Lot picked, because it was all going to be Abram's anyway. Because that's what I got from that. He said, okay, you've made your choice. Yeah. Now relax. Now look up and look everywhere you see.
Well, we see what happens to what Lot
east,
picked.
South, west, right, all of that stuff. It's all yours.
Yeah.
All of it is yours. I don't know how to. I'm with you. I like how you did this math and boundaries.
I don't know what those boundaries were.
That seems like the whole area. That seems like everywhere you can see.
Yeah, exactly. And then he told him, like, just walk through it because it's yours now. You just go discover what I just gave you.
So that was, and as I said, that's the other part is, so when you are faithful to God's purpose, then it opens up the plethora of
the blessings. The blessings just are there. Now, there's times when the blessing we get ain't the blessing we want. I mean, we want all. We have to be willing to accept the blessings that we're given and recognize them and know that everything is a blessing.
Because again,
every breath you take is given by your God. That's not something you should take lightly, I don't think.
So again, we step into this situation with him, with watching Abram, who, and here's what I want to say too is, he's called the father of faith, and he is. And remember, go back to those 5 promises. That he made at the beginning of 12, right? I will make many nations from you, right? So that's a great nation from you. And you look at what Israel's become and et cetera, all that stuff. Then you look at, I will make your name great, the name Abraham. I mean, it is all of that stuff absolutely fulfilled. And even go back to the fact that, again, told a 75-year-old man who was married to a barren woman, that they were going to have, and then we're going to later read, because he made this promise, and we haven't even told you the fact that later in the story it's revealed that they laughed at that. They thought that was the funniest promise that God had given them.
They're like, what's he talking about?
What are you, crazy? I'm an old man. She's barren. And
she's in her 60s when he's 75.
Right.
She's already 65 years old and has not had the first child yet.
And I'll get into the fact that it'll be 25 years from the promise that he gave him that he would have that he'd have a kid.
Yeah, and again, they kind of veer off and go like, well, we need to handle this because it's not happening. So anyway,
but
I think that should be reassuring to all of us, though, is that the father of faith, the father of the belief system we believe in, is very human in this story, right?
Yes.
It's very reminiscent of how we walk through our own lives, being super motivated, being really close, being really receptive of God's will. And then at times we just move away from that and we go like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this my way. And again, we normally get, kicked in the face.
The father, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Joseph. And when I tell you, so we're going, and that Genesis is all about telling these stories. And before it's all done, we'll tell all of these stories. And what's great is, so when you look at this, and I tell you about all these promises, and when we get to Joseph, which is that is an absolute, that is a story that's, as they go, from the pit to the palace, as that goes. But go from the palace to the fact that here he is back pitching a tent. What if I were to tell you that when we get to the end of Abram's life, which it will be Abraham, he's still in a tent.
Yeah.
So the promised land, that great promise, I'll go to the land I'll show you. How many people are willing to go step into that if I'm going to tell you that you're going to still end up sleeping in that tent?
Right. It was probably a nice tent.
I'm not saying it was a bad. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was a nice tent. So, but I think,
again, we've talked about it before. Contentment is something that we struggle with, right? And we should be content with the blessings we have and the spot that we have, the role we have to play in God's plan should be enough.
But our human nature.
Yes, we are very needy.
Yeah. So again, a couple things to I think to just kind of close out the thought is it's going to establish that, and I wanted to bring this up one more time, is that just is just the fact that this guy is known as this faith as being his big thing, and it just seems like there's a lot of times where you could maybe even question. I'm not saying question his faith, maybe, but
you can see it falter, right?
But I can see it falter. I can definitely see
yeah.
where he was like, I'm not sure God's going to be here with me for this, so I'm just going to go do my own thing.
His human nature takes over, and that's why it's so relatable, right? We can all see ourselves in these same struggles.
Yes,
we're not going to be the father of Israel. That's not what's going to happen for us. But God has a plan for us, just like He had a plan for Abraham. We struggle. We struggle all the time. It's not anything that hasn't been happening from the beginning. Adam and Eve struggled. Cain and Abel struggled. Abraham struggled. You're going to see that that's a very recurrent theme, that God uses broken people to fulfill His will.
Yeah, I think that's ultimately what I think you just brought up a good point. I don't think anybody, at least I hope not. I don't know what you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself to be the father of faith, the Israeli nation. To be Abraham and to have that sort of calling, I don't think any of us is what I'm trying to say, are feeling like we have a calling that large. And if you do,
yeah,
I can't even imagine. But whatever your calling is, we all feel short, or we all fall short of it, and we all feel like we're falling short of it all the time.
Absolutely.
But it's like, if this man can be considered the father of faith after some of the things I'm reading here.
Right.
And it goes
things
back,
we still have to read.
And that's ultimately what this book is full of, which is full of, and what's great is how much we go, but I'm not like those people. I'm not like any of those characters in the Bible. No, well, you are. You totally are.
You're just as human as they were.
Just as human as they are. So, and as we are. So
absolutely.
So we're looking forward to doing some more Abraham stuff. It's going to get wild. I think it's Melchizedek. Say that again. Melchizedek. That's it. I think that's where we're headed next, though, isn't it?
There's some unpacking to do there.
Ooh, there's a lot to go with that. So we can't get into the Melchizedek right now.
Yeah.
But that is just know that's coming. So that's your word for the week, Melchizedek.
Yep, go look that
See
up.
how many times you can fit that into a sentence this week. Or if you're looking for a new baby name, How about you? I mean, you got all those grandkids.
Yeah, we got nobody expecting right now, though.
Dang it,
they're
man.
all named.
Melchizedek Doughty. That sounds good, though. I like it. Natalie, are you listening?
I'm out of naming children, so I'm not going to have a say, I don't think.
All right, let's do a quick prayer. Father, thank you so much for giving us an opportunity to talk about your word. We know that faith is paramount to make to take this walk, and so thank you for giving us the opportunity to have faith, and even that mustard seed of faith can just produce incredible results. But we thank you for all things in Jesus. We pray. Amen. Episode 43 coming up next week. We'll see you.
Have a good one.